Throughout Chinese history, Queen Wu Zetian stands out as a remarkable figure due to her brilliance, political acumen, and magnetic personality. Wu Zetian, an intelligent and driven young woman from northern China who was born in 624 AD while serving as a concubine to both Emperor Taizong and his son, Emperor Gaozong, she became a household name in the Tang dynasty court. Legend has it that she also eviscerated her elder brothers, murdered the ruler, poisoned her mother, and killed her sister. Or has the empress been unjustly maligned? The society rarely chose women leaders. In most cases, these women rose to power because of a king's lack of heirs, a cunning queen's usurpation of his power, or a combination of the two. Even more so in earlier eras when monarchs were primarily military leaders and authority was frequently usurped by force, women have always found it more challenging to rule than men. Thus, queens and empresses regnant were pressured to assume the roles of male leaders and were harshly criticized when they did so. In 1588, as the Spanish Armada sailed up the Channel, Elizabeth I felt compelled to deny her sex in order to rally her troops. "I know I have the body of a weak and feeble woman, but I have the heart and stomach of a king, and a kinship with the gods." Fascinating Queen Christina of Sweden was almost as infamous for never using a side saddle and instead riding in breeches. Step into the world of the first female emperor of China, the legendary Queen Wu Zetian. Welcome to Hallmark History Channel. She was a woman of wit, ambition, and unyielding will, and she defied the conventions of her day to ascend to the throne. Come with us as we explore the life of the remarkable woman who altered the course of events and left her mark on the world forever. The life of Wu Zetian, from her inauspicious beginnings to her position as one of ancient China's most influential leaders, is an inspiring tale of perseverance, bravery, and determination. But first, please like and subscribe and be prepared to be moved by the tale of a queen who defied convention. None of these queens, however, has stirred up as much controversy or wielded as much power as a monarch whose true achievements and character are shrouded in mystery. Wu Zetian held the only position of independent power for a woman in China for over 3,000 years. A resident of the 7th century AD, she was a historical figure in her own right. Tang Emperor Taizong was the first to recognize Wu's potential, and he gave her the title Fair Flatterer based not on her personality but on the words of a popular song. Wu, she only uses her surname, is fully deserving of her reputation as a formidable empress. From 690 until her death in 705, she ruled for over 50 years, first as the consort of the ineffective Gaozong Emperor, then as the person in charge of her youngest son's throne. She was fierce and resolute, and she consolidated and stabilized the Tang dynasty when it looked like it might collapse. Given that the Tang dynasty is widely considered to represent the pinnacle of Chinese civilization, this is an especially impressive feat. Even so, there has been some negative coverage of Wu. For centuries, she was vilified as a traitor to traditional Chinese culture by historians in China. Her initial rise to power was suggested to have been due to her willingness to satisfy the Taizong Emperor's more outlandish sexual desires. She was portrayed as a violent usurper with a sexual appetite to match. Having a heart like a serpent and a nature like that of a wolf, as one of her contemporaries put it, she favored evil sycophants and destroyed good and loyal officials. She murdered her sister, butchered her elder brothers, assassinated the ruler, and poisoned her mother, to name just a few of the empress's many atrocities. She has earned the contempt of both mortals and the divine. There's no telling how true to life this picture is of Wu. This is due in part to the official nature and lack of diversity of the surviving sources for early Chinese history, and in part to the fact that imperial history was written to serve as guidance for future emperors, and as such tended to be heavily biased against usurpers, of which Wu is one, and anyone who offended the Confucian sensibilities of the scholars who labored over them, which Wu did simply by being a woman. The empress was aware of both these biases and was not averse to tampering with the record herself, which brings us to our fourth problem: other accounts of her reign were written by relatives who had good reason to despise her. It's tough to extract real people from this swamp of prejudice. The most damning allegations about Wu are summarized in Mary Anderson's Hidden Power, a compilation of imperial rumors. According to Anderson, Wu wiped out 12 ancillary branches of the Tang clan and had the heads of 2 rebellious princes brought before her in her palace. In addition to a litany of other allegations, it is said that she poisoned her husband, who, unlike other Chinese emperors, passed away in isolation and without witnesses, and that she arranged the suicides of a grandson and a granddaughter who had dared to criticize her. Wu's purported disposal of Gaozong's first wife, the Empress Wang, as well as a senior and favored concubine known as the Pure Concubine, has made her notorious in Chinese history. Histories from the time period claim that Wu smothered her 1-week-old daughter by Gaozong and placed the blame on the last person to hold the baby, a man named Wang. Because of the emperor's conviction in her tale, Wang was demoted and imprisoned in a remote corner of the palace, where the Pure Concubine would soon join him. Wu, who had succeeded Wang as empress, ordered the amputation of the women's limbs and then threw their bodies into a vat of wine, where they drowned, saying, "Now these 2 witches can get drunk to their bones." As if infanticide, torture, and murder weren't scandalous enough, Wu's reign is widely believed to have ended due to a series of amorous meetings, which were seen as all the more terrible because they were the indulgences of an elderly woman. According to Anderson, employees who work for others provided her with a regular stream of virulent suitors, including a lusty, long-limbed peddler she occasionally invited into her private chambers. The Zhang brothers, former boy singers with flawless cheeks, received special favors from Wu while she was in her 70s. How they really felt about each other in private as an imperial mistress and a prince is unknown. It is stated that she admired both brothers, but especially the one who had a face as gorgeous as a lotus blossom. The empress, who was badly weakened by illness and advanced age, would only allow the Zhang brothers to stay by her side. The fact that so little is known about Wu's early years makes it practically hard to ascertain the truth about this maze of insinuation. She was the daughter of a minor general by the name of Duke Ding of Ying, and she entered the court as a concubine about the year 636. In order to be a palace concubine, she must have been exceptionally beautiful. As Jonathan Clements puts it, admission to the ranks of palace concubines was tantamount to winning a beauty contest of the most exquisite women in the medieval world. Wu, however, was relegated to the 5th tier of royal women due to her lack of connections, a position more akin to that of a maid than a temptress. An emperor wouldn't notice a low-ranking female. Taizong lost his empress before Wu entered the palace. The careful old warrior ruler pasted official paperwork to his bedroom walls so he could work on them whenever he woke up. She was yet 28 consorts away from the crown. Despite being a well-read and independent concubine, Wu's lone advantage over her higher-ranking suitors was changing the imperial bed sheets, which could have gained her access to Taizong's bedroom. Even if she took advantage of the opportunity, she would need to be smart, driven, and beautiful to become the empress 2 decades later. Wu had to first escape from a nunnery after Taizong's death. All deceased emperors' concubines were imprisoned in convents for the rest of their lives and had their heads shaved because it would have been an insult to the dead ruler had any other man sullied them. And returned to the palace under Gaozong's protection before seducing the new emperor, evicting Empress Wang and the Pure Concubine. By 666, Wu was allowed to sacrifice to the gods with Gaozong and sit in audience with him behind a screen on a throne of comparable height, according to the historians. How did Wu prevail in the cutthroat Tang court despite low expectations? Wu's later life showed her extraordinary power. After Gaozong died in 683, she controlled a succession of her sons before compelling the last one to abdicate in 690 and taking authority herself. Wu was over 80 when her exiled son toppled her in 705. Her only mistake was marrying this boy to a concubine almost as smart and ambitious as she was. Her son's companion kept him from suicide throughout his 15 wretched years in exile and prepared him to reclaim power. What about interpretation? How did she maintain power? Was history right to condemn her? Wu succeeded because she listened. According to R.W.L. Gisso, she passed legislation that empowered informers of any social class to travel at public cost, erected copper boxes across the capital where individuals could anonymously accuse each other, and encouraged informants of all classes to do so. Her secret police terrorized the imperial bureaucrats, The comprehensive mirror states that 36 top administrators were assassinated or forced to commit suicide in the 690s, and 1,000 of their families were enslaved. Her contemporaries thought she was more. All collapsed before her moth brows, wrote Wu's critic Luo Binwang. She claimed to have orchestrated an unprecedented run of scandals that cleared her road to the throne, spanning 2 reigns and many years. She spoke slander and charmed her master. Most historians agree that Wu had intercourse with the future Gaozong emperor before his father died, a shocking breach of protocol that may have killed her but saved her from a Buddhist nunnery. The ambitious concubine's role in early Tang events is unknown. Wu did not cause Taizong's unpleasant eldest son Chang shame, Qian's rebellion, which was a showy embracing of Mongol nomad life. Historian Clements, he would camp out in the royal grounds, roasting sheep. So long, Clements says, as he was granted sexual access to every musician and dancer in the court, male or female. A dissolute brother who joined the revolt was asked to attempt suicide, while another of Taizong's sons was punished for his involvement in a different plan. Chang Qian was banished for rebellion. This line of events allowed Gaozong's and Wu's ascension. Wu planning family killings is more likely. These began in 666 with the poisoning death of a young niece who had caught Gaozong's admiration, and they continued in 674 with the suspicious death of Wu's capable eldest son, Crown Prince Li Hong, and the discovery of numerous armor suits in the stables of a second son, who was quickly demoted to the rank of commoner on suspicion of treason. Wu's third son, who became Emperor Dongzong in 684, was exiled by his mother after 2 months in favor of the more acceptable fourth son, Ruizong. Historians dispute on Wu's benefit from removing these constraints. Wu also executed Ruizong's wife, Empress Lu, and principal consort, Do, on witchcraft charges in 693. During Wu's reign as empress, a memorial tablet was placed near her tomb in hopes that her successors would write a lovely epitaph. It was blank, the only time in over 2,000 years of Chinese history. There is evidence that following generations of Chinese mistrusted Wu. Her massive stone monument on the Spirit Road to her burial is empty. It is the only uncarved memorial tablet in over 2,000 years of imperial history, and its muteness is eerily reminiscent of Hatshepsut's successors' attempts to obliterate her name from pharaonic Egypt's stone records. Due to the rigid structure and growth, China's imperial chronicles could not simply remove Wu's name, but 1,500 years later, one can still see the Confucian Mandarin's severe displeasure. How should one assess an unusual number today? The idea that there were 2 empresses, one who terrorized the highest levels of government and one who ruled 50 million regular Chinese, may be helpful. An emperor should not be punished for crimes, but he should be severely punished for allowing the state to fall into chaos, according to Confucian thought. From this perspective, Wu did perform imperial Chinese ruler duties. Gissa portrays Wu positively. The empress was contemporary. Tang China ended 400 years of civil war. Without Wu there would have been no long-enduring Tang dynasty and perhaps no lasting unification of China, writes C.P. Fitzgerald. Her social, economic, and judicial beliefs were largely pragmatism and harshness. This view explains the 680s horror as a response to bureaucratic opposition to Wu's reign. The empress reforms enraged government servants, as shown by historical records of their objections. Wu proposed a military corps from China's many eunuchs, horrifying her generals. Underprivileged Chinese boys often consented to emasculation to get a high-paying imperial job. She pioneered and supported Buddhism, which overtook Confucianism and Taoism in authority in Tang China. In 700, the Tang Empire ended Wu's period. She had a successful foreign policy throughout her 50 years in charge, winning only a few wars but greatly strengthening the Chinese state. Wiki Commons map. Wu's policies no longer look shocking, and her reputation has substantially improved. During her tranquil and wealthy reign, she instituted the meritocratic entry tests for the imperial bureaucracy, which lasted into the 20th century, avoided wars, and received diplomats from the Byzantine Empire. Wu also showed that, Despite her weaknesses, she was no despot. She frequently acted on the criticism of loyal ministers, one of whom suggested in 701 that she should resign. Understanding the difference between male and female rulers helps explain why the empress was so hated. Wu undoubtedly executed innocent ministers and bureaucrats and even some members of her own family. She also indulged in partiality, brutally fought rivals, promoted family members, and kept a harem of gorgeous young men in her final years. If she'd been a man, these activities would not have been criticized. Every Chinese emperor had concubines, and most had favorites. Most rulers used violence. Taizong murdered 2 of his older brothers in hand-to-hand battle and forced his father to abdicate before gaining the throne. There must also be some skepticism regarding Wu's guilt for some of the most horrific crimes that have been brought against her throughout history. Luo Binwang's fearless contemporary denunciation, for instance, makes no mention of the horrifying deaths of the pure concubine or Empress Wang, which suggests that Wu was not held responsible for them when she was alive. Furthermore, her alleged method, amputation of the hands and feet of her victims before leaving them to drown, seemingly resembles that of her most notorious predecessor, the Empress Lujie of the Han era, who was seen by Chinese historians as the height of evil. The Spirit Road causeway leading to Wu's unfinished tomb is situated between 2 watchtower-topped, low-rises known as the Nipple Hills. Wu remains divisive both in life and in death. Even her grave is impressive. When she passed away, she was buried in a lavish tomb in a rural area 50 miles north of the then capital, Shen. The location was reached via a mile-long causeway that ran between 2 low hills topped with watchtowers. These hills are now referred to as the Nipple Hills in Chinese folklore because it is said that Gaozan chose the location because they reminded him of the young Wu's breasts. The tomb itself is located at the end of the Spirit Road in an incredibly difficult to reach location, built into a mountain at the end of a winding forest path. No one is aware of the secrets it may contain because, like many of the tombs of the most famous Chinese emperors, including the first emperor's own, it has never been looted or cracked open by archaeologists. Wu Zetian was a strong and forward-thinking leader who overcame opposition from her male contemporaries. She defied norms and paved the way for other women to do the same in ancient China. And with that, we conclude our journey through the life of the trailblazing Queen Wu Zetian. She defied all odds and proved that anything is possible with determination, ambition and a little bit of cunning. Thank you for joining us on this enlightening trip through history. Don't forget to hit the like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe to the Hallmark History Channel for more stories of amazing figures from the past. Until next time, goodbye and keep exploring the past, it's a story worth telling.